What up, gamers? I'm Jason.
And I'm Julie.
And today on Dice and Dragons, we are going to be taking a look at an older game that has been refreshed. Now, this was on Kickstarter. However, we got the retail edition. This is Galen Ciscell's Atlantis Rising. In this case, it is published by Elf Creek Games, and it was redesigned and updated by Galen Ciscell as well as Brent Dickman. Now, we also have some great art from Vincent Dutray. And while Julie tells you a little bit more about the game itself, I'm going to cheat back here and get the second artist's name because I feel terribly bad. It is slipping my mind right now. So, Julie, tell people more about the game itself.
So it's a cooperative game that plays 1 to 7 players. So definitely a lot of players. Intended for ages 10 and above, and plays in 60 to 120 minutes. I think we found that our playthroughs were definitely on the lower end of that. It's one time that, at least what we can see, is that's not an exaggeration of time.
No, it does feel very spot on. We played the game at 2 and 4 players, us just controlling 1 counselor each, and then us controlling 2 counselors. Now, the graphics were done by, and I had it, and it is Peter Gifford. Sorry about that. So I wasn't too mistaken. There's only one artist. The other guy did the fantastic graphic design. I really love the look of this game. Don't worry, we'll talk about it more in our review. Now, what are you doing in Atlantis Rising? Well, you have a power core.
And let me guess, we're going to save Atlantis?
No, we can't save Atlantis.
Okay.
We can save the people of Atlantis, though. So there is a power core at the center of the island, or 6 peninsulas that are slowly going to be flooded each turn. What you need to do is build the cosmic gate. You do this by constructing 9 components, and finally completing the power core, which requires the participation of all players, and then saving what is left of the Atlanteans as you journey to a new location, realm. I'm not sure, it doesn't really say in the game, but someplace that's a lot nicer than a sinking island. So with that being said, Julie, what time is it?
Time to grab our drinks.
Grab our best friend.
We're going to take it to the table.
We're going to take it to the table now. I almost backed this on Kickstarter. Kind of glad I didn't. There's a lot of extras and cost a little bit of money, more money than this version. But you know what? I don't know. Maybe if you're playing this, I'll regret it. Now we're going to take a look at the components for Atlantis Rising Second Edition. Here we've got the Cosmic Gate board, which is where you're going to be building the components, and then finally the power core to activate the gate, and then send the Atlanteans through to safety. Now, since we're talking about the Cosmic Gate, let's take a look at the components. Now, depending on whether you're playing your first game or you're doing a harder difficulty, you'll be using either components that have the letter A on them, the letter B, letter C, and the letter D. As you can see, the difficulty of crafting the components goes up based on the letter. Now, the components will fit in the board as so. Here we have the starting player token. We also have these mystic barrier symbols, as well as the base to hold them, which will be used to protect your peninsula. Now, this is the Mystic Power Core, the core of Atlantis. If it floods, well, guess what? You have lost the game. Now, I did not include all of the map tiles because there's quite a few. The important ones are these 2 right here. This represents the end of a peninsula. This represents the part that will go up against and fit on your center. And as you can see, we've got a nice selection in terms of the art. We've got forges, mountains. Don't worry, you'll see some of the other areas like the cities and hills. Now, all of them are double-sided because they can become flooded, causing you to lose access to those areas. Now, we've got the resource tokens down here, as well as the Wrath of the Gods token, which goes on that track. So we've got gold, crystal, mystic energy, Atlantium, and ore. This Wrath of the Gods track tells you how many areas of the city will become flooded as time ticks on, because the gods are not happy with Atlantis using technology like the mystic energy, and they want to sink your city. Now, we've got the player tokens here. So as you can see, there are 7 colors. This is a game for 7 players. The one thing that is very important to note is that there are not the same amount of followers with every color. So pick your color accordingly. The reason for that is to create a little bit differing playstyles. And as you get to higher player counts, there's going to be less opportunities for people to add more followers. So it won't make that much of a difference. We do have the automaton and the hologram. Now these are used in solo and player games that, player counts that are lower than 4 players. For our playthrough, we will be doing, it's not a playthrough, the how to play. We'll be using 2 players as the game plays the same, whether it's 2 to 4 players besides the addition of the hologram or the automata, which I believe is only for the single player. We have 2 6-sided dice, which you'll be rolling in order to get resources. And we've got volunteers, which are temporary workers that can join your cause. Now here we've got the misfortune deck and the library cards. Now as you can see, we may have some special ones. We have different areas of the map, so hills, cities, mountains, forges. We may even have things that reset the deck, forests, energy drain, malfunction. So keep all that in mind, that we do have these different misfortunes that are going to show up. We even do have some calm seas and the controlled floods. Now, these are all stacked together at the top because depending on the difficulty level, you'll use different amounts of them. Now, with regards to the library card, we have a whole selection of different abilities that we can use. Now, they can be played at any time. There are also the artifacts, which you'll not have access to all during your play. You only get 4 out of the 10. However, I do have 11 for some reason. The rulebook does say 10. So keep that in mind. And they're very powerful. They do stay in play and count towards your maximum hand size limit. Now, lastly, we'll take a look at the different counselors. So we do have the artificer, who can use unbuilt components. You do have a nice explanation of the round, what you're able to do with your mystic energy. So this means increase the value of a die. This means you can hold on to an extra library card. This can create a mystic barrier or unflood an area that's been flooded. Now your counselors may combine their resources to do that. What's nice about these is that they're all double-sided, so you can play a male or female character if you so choose. The power stays the same. We do have the priestess. Now, what she lets you do is re-roll a failed roll. We also have the priest. The mystic. Now, what happens with the mystic is if your leader fails the productive action, you may remove their leader from the area. And you'll notice you can have multiple people on a specific area to let another player automatically succeed. So just showing you the double-sided. You have the Aquanaut, which may use flooded tiles. However, if any tile in the peninsula floods, then you kind of get knocked off because you have to treat that space, even though it's already flooded, like it just was flooded. So the only thing I don't like about this is you can see that we've got the Aquanaut and the Seafarer. Aquanaut looks so much cooler. Then we have the Guardian, who can be standing at anywhere on a peninsula and then remove himself to protect that area from the flood. We have the Scholar, who does get access to one of those items, specifically the ones that have the Scholar icon at the start of the game. We do have the Champion. Now, the nice thing about the Champion is that if his area will be flooded, him and any Atlanteans on that space, so this area gets flooded, for example, everyone can use it before it's not available. Then we have the Emissary, which would let you, I don't believe I showed you the female Champion. There you go. Now, with regards to the Emissary, for example, this title here, you could support an additional Atlantean. So it's very, very cool. The Astrologer lets you place your characters, your workers and leader potentially out of order after the misfortunes have been drawn. So that's very cool. Next, we've got the Explorer. So whatever tile your leader is on in a wild peninsula. So just to explain that, cities, libraries, forges are civilized, the rest are wild. The target number for that tile is reduced by 1, which is really good. And there you have it. We've taken a look at the different counselors that can be played in Atlantis Rising Second Edition. So now we're going to go through the setup and then teach you how to play. Now, before we get to the setup, I did neglect to showcase the rulebook. So here it is, the rulebook for the game. We have an FAQ on the back. Pages 14 and 15 are all about advanced play. We'll teach you how to play with 3 players, 2 players, how to use the hologram, the solo variant, as well as the board down here for adjusting difficulty. It's very straightforward. You do get some nice flavor text, and then it just shows you how to set up your first game, recommended settings for your first game, and then goes through all the rounds. The art is nice. Everything about it feels very good, and it flows fairly well. We didn't have to do too much looking up in the rulebook during our first play. So there you have it, taking a look at the rulebook. Now what I'm going to do is set up the game. Now let's teach you how to set up Atlantis Rising Second Edition. So now you'll notice I've built most of the island. We'll start off with showing you just how it was built. You'll notice that this top part gets cut off, so that's why. And I'm knocking this stuff around. That's why those 2 pieces I've placed just next to it to make sure that we've got the maximum amount of components on camera. Now, this might be just slightly cut off at the bottom. It's a little tricky with my overhead setup to see, but you should be able to see everything. And just like all of these peninsulas, there's only one space for a worker. So what you always start with is the hexagonal piece, and then you're really just going to build it out from there. So they all slot nicely together. And it's always going to be the same setup. Now, the way I've divided up the board is we've got the 3 civilized locations and then the 3 wild locations next to each other just to keep things clearer. Now, we've got the library cards. We take all of the standard ones. We then take the artifacts. We shuffle up these artifacts. We take 4 of them. They're then added into the main library deck. Now, if you're playing the Scholar, follow the instructions on the Scholar, as you will have a different set of setup instructions. Now we are following the first game setup. So you take the whole misfortune deck. We need to add in 3 controlled floods, which will flood 2 locations and cannot be prevented by mystic barriers, as well as the 9 calm seas, and they are added into the misfortune deck. Now I'm going to do more shuffling of the cards off camera. I just want to get them a little bit mixed in for the moment. Now, as you can see, we do have our mystic barriers. We followed, like I said, the first game setup. So all the components that are listed here are the ones from the first game setup. Now, normally you would have them set up like this, all 9 of them, because you can potentially place your leaders on them if you are using the artificer. We are not using the artificer in this game, so it's not that big of a deal. I do have them all stacked up just to maximize space. We have the Wrath of the Gods track, which includes all of our extra Atlanteans. Now we are using yellow for the champion, who is my second player or first player. The astrologer is blue. Now we picked blue and yellow. Said that backwards, not a big deal, because they have the most followers. For example, I'll just take a look at this one. You can see with orange, they only have a total of 4 followers. So keep that in mind. If you want to adjust the difficulty, you may pick a leader that can only have 4 followers instead of the maximum of 7. Now we do have the hologram, as this is a 2-player setup, which is going to let us use the abilities of these other counselors, even though they are not in play. So they're already near the board. We have now taken out just a smattering of the resources, not all of them. We have our 2 D6s that we're going to need, and we now must set the Wrath of the Gods track to 0. Now, the game is all set up. We've got our power core. We've picked our guys, and now we're ready to teach you how to play. Now let's teach you how to play Atlantis Rising Second Edition. To do that, we are going to go through 2 full rounds of the game in this section. Now, anything that doesn't get covered, for example, if we don't use the cities, if we don't take library cards or convert Atlantium, can't really see that happening. Well, we're going to cover it in a second part of the how to play, where we will explain how to use the power core and win the game. Now, The way that this works is we now must place our Atlanteans. We have a limited amount of space to place the Atlanteans. There is also a risk of the most recent card, well, not card, the closest part of the peninsula getting flooded when we do draw our misfortunes. So do not forget about that and plan accordingly. So we're just going to review what resources we can get. This will let you get access to another follower. It does require 2 Atlanteans to be sharing the space. Now blue, I'm saying it backwards, yellow and blue may work together, and then they can decide which color will get an Atlantean from the supply. The forges will let us convert ore that we gain in the mountains into Atlantium. Here we're able to draw library cards. In the case here, we draw 2, keep 2. Draw 2, keep 1, put 1 at the bottom of the deck. Draw 2, keep 1, and then discard a card. Now this is important because library cards cannot be reshuffled. Once this deck is gone, it is gone. And if you're playing the game right, you should probably not have any left close to the end of the game or on your last turn. Here's where you obtain crystals. Here is where you get ore. And this is where you get gold. So now let's go ahead and place our Atlanteans. Now don't forget, we do have some special abilities. So with regards to the astrologer, you may place your leader and up to 2 Atlanteans after the misfortunes are drawn. Well, the champion here, what he can do is when you place your leader, when your leader is on a flooded tile, all Atlanteans on that tile may immediately take the action. Sorry about that. Trying to say Atlantean quickly really doesn't work that well. And then before being returned to the pile, they get to take that action. So that's pretty cool. So what I'm going to do then is, library cards are very valuable. I can guarantee that we're going to get some of them. We're going to definitely need some Atlantium. Now, a great way to plan your resources. It's a little easier at the start of the game. But just take a look at all your components and see what you need. Count out the total because you can share resources when you're going to be building components. Now, you can't build any components on the first round because you have no resources. Now, we can't forget the hologram. And the hologram, we're going to do that right now. Now, please note, in a 4-player game, everything you're doing here is going to be the same. You just will not have the hologram. You take the top 2 cards of the deck, and then you decide which one that you want to keep. Now, the Artificer would be great, but just because of the way we've got the stuff set up, it's not going so well for him in terms of showing off his ability. So we're going to pick the Guardian. But I do want to highlight the Artificer would let us, place the leader on that thing. Actually, you know what? We've got the entropy drive on the top. It's pretty cool. We're going to take the Artificer. So the first player, as you can see, is yellow, the champion. So with the Artificer, we're going to take his hologram and we place on an unbuilt component, which is the entropy drive. Now, with regards to the entropy drive, we roll a die and we get what is depicted on the entropy drive. So this guy's essentially in play for that hologram for this round. Now, in terms of the astrologer, we're going to just put our guys aside because we're going to wait till after the misfortunes are drawn. Now, it is important to try to get some ore. Now, we're going to plan, this is a co-op game, so we'll be working together. So we'll just keep in mind that the astrologer can go after areas that don't flood fairly easily. So, for example, she's going to try to get the ore. So even though we do need some ore, I'm not going to go for the areas that can flood. We'll go here. It's fairly difficult to get another ally at the start of the game, and the forges are useless until you have any ore. I'll place my followers here. We should try to get some crystals as well, and go for another gold. You want to take turns placing. In a 2-player game, it's not that bad because typically you're still going to find a great spot to go, and we're only drawing 2 misfortunes. So the chances of anything bad going on the first part is not very high, well, in terms of losing that second location. So now we draw 1 misfortune per player. So the first one is forges, meaning we must flip over that first area. That's unfortunate. Now the discard pile is just going to be off camera. We'll draw the second one. We've got the Imperial Breach, so we removed all Mystic Barriers on the island. Luckily, we don't have any in play. Now, what a Mystic Barrier would do, they protect the whole peninsula. So, for example, if we had one out and we were supposed to flood this area, well, instead of flooding it, we would have just discarded the Mystic Barrier. In any case, we can only build those later on, and they do cost Mystic Energy. Just a recap of what we can do with our Mystic Energy. We can add one to a die roll with 1. We can keep an extra library card. If, for example, we draw 2 and are only allowed to keep 1. 4 of them and 5 will let us, 4 lets us build a Mystic Barrier. 5 lets us unflood a tile. Now, counselors can share energy to take these actions. Well, we've now seen where the misfortunes were, and we can go ahead and place our characters, Atlanteans. So we're going to place them on the valuable locations as we'd like to get some resources. And then we need to roll a dice. Now I'm going to start with my 2 for gold there, for yellow. And I'm using these player markers here. I mean, you can have them on your player board to tell you which one is which, just to separate which side I'm keeping resources on. So we'll roll the dice, and I got a 5 and a 1, meaning I only succeeded 1 time gathering a gold. Now, with regards to the crystal, and then actually, sorry, I was skipping ahead, lay your characters down just to say that they've been used. So we'll roll for the other gold. That is a 1. Now, I could spend 2 Mystic Energy to increase that to a 3 to get a gold, but I don't think that's a great trade of resources. And sorry, I would have had to take it from the blue pool. So no gold this time. We're trying for the ore. Now, we failed with blue on the ore. We are going to spend Mystic Energy because gaining that ore is valuable. Now, I'm going to just roll for both because I'm playing both players. We need to get 3+ for the ore. So each succeeds. We get ore and ore. I'm going to lay them down. Now, blue is going to try for the crystal at 4. That is a fail with a 1. We'll try for the crystal at 5. Get a 6. So we do gain the crystal, which I did neglect to put out, but it is sitting off to the side. So let me just reach in and grab a crystal. And we'll take these out. My apologies. There are quite a few components for this game. And then we'll slide them over there. Just add them to our nice resource pool. So there we go. And then lastly, we're going to roll for the other crystal. We get a 2, no go. And I do get to draw 2 library cards. So we've got the Rune of Reprieve, which lets us unflood a tile, and the Enigma of Alacrity. 1 leader in a civilized section may take its action 1 additional time. So this is for yellow. We're going to keep them off to the side. This is with our champion. And we'll lay him down. Now, you can execute this stuff in any order. You may want to take your library cards first, as they can be very powerful. We'll use the Artificer on the entropy drive to see what we get. We rolled a 1, meaning we gain a Mystic Energy. You've now completed the first round of the game. You must now do the Wrath of the Gods. We're at 0. Nothing happens. We just slide the track up to 1. We return all of our guys to our pool. First player is going to switch sides. Sorry if everything's not as neat as it was originally. Move the Mystic Energy. And there we have it. So we've completed our first turn. The hologram will now be in control of the blue player. The Artificer and the Guardian are now both in the discard pile. And it's time for us to start So first thing the astrologer does is take a look at the 2 available ones and likes the priest because of the failed roll. So the mystic ends up in the discard pile. And the priest is now represented by the hologram. Take a look at our resources. We're still not really able to build anything. We've only have a few things right now. And unfortunately, we did not get like a lot of crystal. We could potentially build something if we get more crystal, but we can also work together. So let's see if we've got anything that's just 1 gold, 1 crystal. So we do have the pressure keel. Now, this is not a smart thing to do right now in the game. You shuffle all calm seas back into the misfortune deck. Very good ability, but I want to teach you how to build components. This is how to play. We're not playing to win. Now, in order to do that, as I've got a gold and blue's got the crystal, we're going to place them each at a location and they'll be able to share the resources to build the pressure keel. Now, in terms of hologram, you may gain a failed roll again. Well, we do need some crystals. And you know what? It's only 1 leader that can be kept out. So we'll place hologram, try to get some crystals. These guys are going to go back on the astrologer's board. And then we'll place. I want to teach you how you can potentially get followers. So we'll try for that this time. And actually to do that, since we haven't shown it, we're going to use the leader just to ensure that it happens. We're going to place 1 person to start getting some Atlantium. And then as always, getting library cards is important. We'll take the chance and see what happens. Now, we need to draw our 2 misfortunes. So we'll draw the first one, which is the forest. And a flood. We will draw our second misfortune, which is the mountains. Not flood. Now we're going to use both of our characters to build. So we take crystal and a gold. We then take the pressure keel and put it into play. Doesn't matter where we put it. We will now try to gain a new follower for either yellow or blue. I'm going to roll the dice. So we needed 7+. We have a total of 9. We also get to add the Wrath of the Gods amount to it, meaning we have a total of 10. We do succeed, and we will take a follower for the astrologer from the pool. And I did neglect to do something, so this is being done out of order. Don't forget, these are supposed to be played before we take actions. Now we haven't taken a lot of action that hasn't affected much. Clearly, as you can see from the ore, we do want to get our Atlantium. And actually, it's a great chance to show why you're going to want the library cards. We'll use the Rune of Reprieve to unflood a tile to get them there. And we definitely want to get some more library cards. So the Rune of Reprieve is now discarded, and it will not be coming back into play. And just to add some variety right here, let's go ahead and move that. Did I neglect to place one of my guys? Now let's just count it all out. I have 1, 2, 3. I did neglect to place this guy. My apologies. So technically he should have been placed beforehand. We will make the placement something a little more strategic. Actually, should have been placed trying to get crystal. Gathering resources is a must. So don't do what I did. Sorry about that, but it's not really affecting anything in terms of how the game is played. So we're going to continue. So now we trade the ore for Atlantium. So these 2 ore are gone. We take a total of 5 Atlantium. Shift them over to our resource stack. I'll put them like this. Should be okay. And that's because we changed 2 ore, 1 for 3. 1 for 2. Now we're going to do the same thing. Yellow, gaining 2 Atlantium. Now we always go up the peninsula, so we're going to draw the 2 library cards. and be able to keep 2. So we get the Aegis Shield. So you may always re-roll a die on which you roll a 1. So that will stay in play. We've got the Doctrine of Persistence. Choose a wild peninsula. Any Atlantean that has or will fail its action on there may be laid on its side instead of being returned to the counselor's pool. So if you like go all after one area, you can automatically succeed, which is very, very powerful. We'll now take 2 library cards for blue. Got the Librum of Unity and the Lore of Persuasion, which means you can gain 3 volunteers. So we're going to keep the 3 volunteers. It's a great card. This one goes at the bottom of the deck. Now we can play it immediately, meaning you'll become discarded. And for the next turn, we'll switch back over to the Astrologer. Just give myself a little more room. We've got 3 of these guys, volunteers, that can be played. Now lastly, we need to roll. So the hologram will roll. Fails, gets to reroll because it's the priest. Still fails. Next we'll try with the champions one. Fails, but we're going to spend 2 mystic energy to gain a crystal. Now we have to face the Wrath of the Gods, which means we must automatically flood an area. Now, you don't need to worry about your guys. They will be returned to your pool no matter what. So in this case, we'll flood the cities. They're fairly challenging, but we do want to get more workers. We return everyone to the pool. And now the gameplay will continue. We also need to slide the Wrath of the Gods track up. And there you have it. We've now played through 2 full rounds of Atlantis Rising. It's going to keep being played like that. Now, 2 examples that I want to give before we move on to teaching you the power core and other stuff. We actually did cover everything on the board, which makes me happy. It's how you would get the barrier. So for example, we're going to just take these 4 mystic energy. We would have to spend them. Could have come from globally. Mystic barrier then comes up. We'll place it here. So the misfortune is hills. Well, let's say we actually did have the barrier over at the hills. When this came up, we just discard the barrier instead. And I know I said I was going to actually do it as a separate section, but it doesn't make much sense. We can definitely just show you right now without cutting the video. So in order to build the power core and win the game, all components must be built. Each player in the game must place their leader on the same space, and then you must pay a total of the resources for the power core. So 2 crystals, 2 gold, 2 Atlantium, and 2 mystic energy. And each player has to contribute something. So in a 2-player game, 2 of us would have to contribute. In a 3-player game, all 3 have to give something. So if you do have someone that has no resources or has only ore, it's not going to work. After that, once you've completed it, power core is active. And there you have it. The cosmic gate is open and you have saved Atlantis. So now we've gone over how to play the game. As you can see, it's fairly straightforward. If you do have any questions, don't forget there's a nice FAQ on the back of the rule book. And now Julie and I are going to be coming back at you with our review of the game. Atlantis Rising Second Edition. What did you think of the game?
Well, I thought it was fun. It's different from other games that we have, and it's relatively easy. So that's fun too. It's definitely interesting to be able to have a game that we can play and have fun and not have to, use 100% brain power.
So easier, do you mean easy in terms of playing the game in terms of the mechanics, or easy in terms of it's easy to win? She loves winning.
Both. I think that's why it's intended for ages 10 and above. I think it's a little less complex than some of the other games that we've played from a mechanic perspective. it's fairly easy to pick up. I mean, at first, when we first sat down and you explained to me, I'm like, I'll figure it out as we go. But that didn't take very long. I mean, it's not very complex from a gameplay mechanism point of view. We still played it on the fairly low level, so I don't know if we played it on. I mean, we played level 1 and 2.
It goes up to level 5. That's the one thing that I did want to mention. Our experience, because we really wanted to learn the mechanics, get the feel for the game, try a few different settings so that we can talk about it. I do think that as you go to higher difficulties, it will get harder, but I will agree with Julie's easy comment, but we'll talk about that a little more when we get to player counts. Just to sort of add on how this is very different than other games that we have. We don't have any cooperative worker placement games. We don't typically play worker placement, so it's nice to have something that we can do. And the only game I want to call a worker placement, but there's a little bit more to it than that, is CO2, which is very similar to this in terms of placing your guys, getting your resources, and working together to defeat the game. But that one is a brain burner, where this one, in terms of mechanisms, it's not. But I can definitely see how on level 5 difficulty, when you've got a lot of resources, you need to grab everything as quickly as possible, especially if you pick some leaders that have less followers. You can make it incredibly challenging if you so choose.
So from what did I like about this perspective? I like the different counselors, and I like that they were male or female of the same type. And I think sometimes in some cases, and we talked about it, some of the female options seemed more interesting than the male equivalent on the same card.
I showed that in the components. We're talking about the Aquanaut versus the Seafarer. It only happened once. I was like, really? Like Aquanaut, Seafarer? Not sure why. It's there. In any case, if you did not watch the components, feel free to take a look at the timestamps. You can go back and see what Julie's talking about.
So I like the color. I mean, I'm fairly consistent when it comes to this, when it comes to reviews of game. I love bright colors in games, and this one definitely fits the bill here. It's a very bright and colorful game, and very pretty.
Now, the art is really good, and another game that we reviewed that had the same artist was Rising 5. That was the one that plays a little bit similar memory. I know that I think your favorite part of that game was the art, because we had the retail edition, which is missing a lot of the things that
it reminds
would have
me
added to Rising 5.
From the jewel tone colors perspective, it reminds me a little bit of Unearth. Remember Unearth? I'm like, and it's pretty.
I have to disagree on that, because I find that the tones are very different. Like Unearth definitely is a very colorful look, but like this is definitely got that more like sand, like ancient.
Yeah,
and it's got a feel of ancient Egypt, but not quite. I like the blues. That sort of really makes it feel like it's its own thing.
I just meant the brightness of the colors.
Huh.
So from a board perspective and the tokens and the components of it, I think I'm pretty impressed with this game. The cards, there's no way you're going to be sleeving these cards.
I was thinking about sleeving them.
No need. They're almost plastic cards. They're really they're good quality cards. I'm pretty impressed with that. And the corrugate cardboard that's used is a thick cardboard. It's nice.
No, I definitely have to say, everything about the components is great. The only reason why I considered sleeving the cards, there was a lot of shuffling. I've noticed already, because the cards are so thick, which is good, a little bit of scuffing around the edges. Now, there aren't a lot of cards in the game. You also have the space to sleeve them. So it's one of those things where it's like for an extra $4 or $5, you can potentially sleeve and protect your cards. It's also not the standard size. You can get I believe they're mini Europeans. Anyhow, I'm looking into it. The main reason why I would sleeve them is just because I really do enjoy the game. I'd like to keep it in good condition for a while.
And I love the feel of the cards, so I would like to leave them.
Okay, well, I'll make you a deal. If they get scuffed, I can sleeve them?
Yes.
Okay, we're shaking on it. Done.
Okay. So that being said, I enjoyed the way that this played. I enjoyed the different aspects of it. I have to say, actually, do you have anything else positive that you would like to say about this?
Positive about the game, and as Julie mentioned, the game is ages 10 to above. Variable difficulty and replayability is incredibly high. You can play on level 1 through 5. You can make things difficult by choosing different leaders. You can play a level 1 game where you can only get access to a few different followers. So we've played with the leaders that had 7. You can play with leaders that only have access to 3, meaning you're going to be scrambling a lot more for resources. Volunteers are going to be a big part of your game, so you can plan accordingly. Also, you can set everything up like purely random if you want, and you're not going to be quite sure what experience you're going to get. Random counselors, random leaders, so you're not sure what your follower pool is, and even random components, because the components in the Cosmic Gate do make a big difference in the game as well. So that's one thing that I really have to commend the game for. You can play this as a family game, or you can crank the difficulty up to 10 and play this as a brain-burning, frustrating experience if that's the kind of game that you're looking for. And there's very few games that I would say have that level of variability in it, and I really have to commend them for putting that into the game. And the game is really easy to teach. I went over the game with Julian that she said, wasn't quite getting it, but I was like, here are the basics of what we're doing. I'm going to go first and follow my actions, and you're getting ideas of what we're doing. After about turn and a half, you're like, I got it. And then, so that's really great because it's something that you can get to a table on a game night. You can get it out during a family game night, or even when you just have family over. You can teach this to people that aren't big gamers. And as Julie talked about, the colors, the quality of the components is something that can really bring non-gamers into the game.
So from my perspective, I would add to this it's not really a negative comment. I just say definitely there are some counselors that are more overpowered than others. The different ones that we played with, we could definitely see that there's an advantage to having them, and the game would be harder without them. Would you agree?
Well, I would say that they're not necessarily overpowered, but not all counselors are made equal. But we've played a lot of the counselors, and I'm drawing a blank as to exactly how many are in the box. I know there's more than 7, or there might exactly be 7, but with the range of counselors I played, and I played like solo, like just 4 different counselors, they all had very good abilities. I think some of them also depend like on your components and things that you get. So for example, during a random game, if you get the Artificer who can use unbuilt components, big advantage. Now if you get all unbuilt components with no spaces for your Artificer, he's completely useless. So I would say that while they're not all created equal, there's only, I think, maybe 1 or 2 that are kind of, I'm not really a big fan of the Scholar. I don't think that ability is great. If you could pick any of the artifacts, it would be, but just with the Scholar ones, not so much. And I wasn't a big fan of the Explorer, but he's got some value too. Like, it's something that in a larger player count game, it could be very helpful.
Yeah, so I think we haven't played it, 7 players or even 6 players, so we don't know what that's like. But from a scalability perspective, even from 2 to 4, it's definitely a lot easier at 2-player, I found, especially with
7 followers.
Yes, and also especially with the hologram.
Mm-hmm.
That definitely made it a lot easier. You have a whole other resource every other turn.
No, and that's one thing that I have to agree with Julie. And I'm just thinking through a little bit. So talking about variability, I don't think I would play 2 players with 7 followers again, because in our last play, we just crushed the board. We got some luck. We didn't get any controlled floods or anything that was very difficult for us to manage. And just with the components we had and then getting the Artificer, next thing you knew, I had all my followers, Julie had her followers. We were getting like 2 or 3 volunteers every turn. We were just bringing everything in. And then when through the Wrath of the Gods and things like that, Atlantis started to get more and more, in danger of sinking beneath the waves, we actually didn't have too much of an issue dealing with any of that.
No.
So that's one thing that I will say. And our first play had 4 players, whereas it felt a lot tighter when we were playing on level 1. Our last play was at level 2 with 2 players. So I definitely think that there is some scalability issues. Minor, nothing major, but...
No, just a little bit. The other thing I would say is more a suggestion than anything else. It just feels like, when, like the last couple, I think every time we've played it, once we are going to win, we know we're going to win, and we're not really, there's not we never came that close to us being in danger of not winning, right?
Well, the first play, we almost went south. We still had a good handle on it. But I do get the feeling that when you're playing with higher player counts, you can't really solve the game. I do think at lower player counts, you can sort of solve it, math it out, be like, we're going to do this, this, and this. This is going to happen. And unless we draw this one bad card, we're going to win the game.
So as much as most of the time, the backstory or the story that comes with it, I tell you whatever, as long as we win or we know that we win, it's good enough. In this case, I kind of feel like I'd like to know how, like, for a rating of the win, like, did we barely squeak by and just save a handful of Atlanteans, or did we do a fabulous job and we say we're not really saving anybody, right? We're building this machine
to get the cosmic gate. So you want a score track. You want to be like, if X amount of places are unflooded, you're great. If only one tile is left unflooded, it's like, he got away, but ooh, I think your Atlanteans might want to kill you afterwards.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, just add a little bit to it to say, hey, you saved the majority of you did great job, just something, because there is replayability to this. It'd be nice, to be able to say you're progressing and you're getting better at it.
Yeah, try to beat your high score. I totally understand that. I'm the video gamer. I get trying to beat the high score or getting that last achievement to fully beat the game.
Yeah, but it's definitely a fun game, and it's something that there's not a lot of negatives, I would say, to this game.
No, I think overall it's solid. I think we're ready to give our final thoughts. Like we said, really just the scalability. There's really nothing I can say that I hate about this game. I would say that because it's coming from a smaller publisher and it has high quality components, you are going to be paying a little bit of a premium for the game, and depending on how you feel about board games, that may or may not be a negative. Now, when I first picked up the game, I was like, did I want to spend that much? Well, fairly happy with it, but this game is coming in probably closer to about that $50 US mark, where I think if they'd lower the quality of the components, it could be easily like a $30 to $40 game. But that being said, I do like the upgraded components, and I have no problem paying that price for the game because of the art and everything going behind it.
That hologram counselor is pretty cool too.
Yeah, no, everything that was done about this game is great. So you are paying for the production value. That's all I want to say. Mm-hmm. It's in there, but you're paying for it. This isn't a game that had incredible economies of scale. You're getting a great place and high quality. But if Elf Creek Games are going to keep putting out interesting games, high quality components, I can definitely see them getting to that point, because I believe this is their first game. If you guys happen to watch this and this is not your first game, please let us know down in the comments below.
So last time I think I let you go first for the rating. So I'm going to go ahead and give one of my rare 8s on this one.
Rare 8s, really? So just because I'm a little bit more finicky on the mechanics and everything like that, I'm going to give this a 7.5. I think if the scalability was a little bit more consistent, I'd probably give it an 8 as well. But the fact of the matter that we just wrecked the game with 2 players does bother me just a little bit.
Really liked playing the astrologer though. So
I think that's your favorite one. Mm-hmm. You like the Aquanaut as well too.
Astrologer was more fun. I like knowing the future.
All right, so what time is it then, Julie?
Well, it's time to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified when we have new content for you.
Also, down below in the video description, you can find links to all of our social media feeds, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you'd like to see pictures of our first play and a few other plays of Atlantis Rising, take a look. Follow us on Instagram or any one of the other feeds. The pictures will be there. Also, popping up in front of us are going to be links to some of our previously done videos. For this one, as it's in the same genre, you will see a link back to CO2, our review on how to play the cooperative version of the game, and then a link back to our latest video. So now what time is it?
Now it's time to grab our drinks.
Grab our best friend.
We're going to keep playing games.
Going to keep playing games, and I'm glad we're going to keep playing this one. I would like to get this out with some more non-gamers and just see how it goes over. I'm very curious.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.